Gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time once again for the Johnny Mandolin Show, broadcasting live on City World Radio Network. We're going to have a great guest on the show tonight, a marvelous musician, Kristen Lee Sargent will be here in studio, and of course our good friend Nathan Brown, who's going to stop by. So stick around, don't touch that mouse, because of course we're broadcasting live on the Johnny Mandolin Show on City World Radio Network. That's our theme song, Anello's Blues, bringing us to another Johnny Mandolin Show on City World Radio. Folks, we have too much fun here. Radio is a wonderful experience. It's a lot of fun. And it's really the theater of the mind, because there's no cameras here. We don't like cameras. So we just broadcast live and we have a good time. I want to give a quick shout out to all our listeners all over the world, L.A. and Vegas and Miami and Chicago and Palermo, Sicily, and our friends in Moscow. Everybody who's listening in, we love you. A special shout out to our California friends, including Phil Gonzalez, a longtime listener, and others who email us and tune in to our show. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring on a wonderful artist, just has a new CD out, and will be performing actually tomorrow at Birdland. So to the mic, Miss Kristen Lee Sargent.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Oh, great. I'm so glad you could make it in.
Yeah.
I want to welcome to the mic to Nathan Brown.
Hi.
Nathan knows his way around a bass. Let me tell you that right now. Excellent world-class bass player. So welcome to the show, and I'm so glad you could come in.
Thank you, Johnny.
Oh, it's fun. So tell our audience a little bit about you, who you are, and what you do.
Sure. Hi, everybody. It's so exciting to be talking to people all over the world. I'm a jazz vocalist, also an arranger and a songwriter. And I come to become a jazz singer by way of theatrical and classical training. So that just kind of makes me a little bit different than a lot of people who started in this art form. And this is my second record that just got released. It has a combination of, there's one 80s pop tune that I rearranged. There's two originals, and then some standards, which I think are given a more, definitely an idiosyncratic touch.
That's great. Well, we're going to be hearing it on the air live. And what's the name of the CD?
The CD is called Smolder.
Wow. Mm-hmm. I love it. That sounds like a good jazz album.
It's meant to be an evocative title. All the songs have a theme of fire that holds them, that puts them together. So it's either, maybe it's a spark that's about to be ignited, or it's what happens after a flame has died. These are kind of the themes that the songs deal with.
I think that's great. Back in the day when we were doing albums like vinyl, the albums almost always had a theme. They always were tied together. It wasn't just random songs put on. There was a theme put together, so it's nice to know you're doing that.
Yeah, I think coming from the world of theater, the desire to have a sort of a narrative sensibility to the record, even though that may not be how most people consume their music now. I think jazz fans are something special, so they might listen to something from beginning to end.
Well, listen, I can honestly tell you that on my record label, we've had so many long-term listeners. Every now and then somebody says, "You got any 8-tracks? Got any vinyl?" Wow. And actually we do. So back in the warehouse. That's great.
Nice.
How'd you get into music? What prompted you to get into this world?
I've always had a voice as a singer, and that became apparent when I was young. But I had sort of a reluctant relationship with it to start. It was kind of scary. I mean, at least in the sense when I talk to people who say, "Oh, I wish I could sing," or "Singing is so scary," I say, "I know what you mean." Yeah. So I was drawn to performing and was a singing actress and that sort of thing, and always musically curious. So I studied classically when I got into college, and theater brought me into many different kinds of things. I did pop operas, rock operas, Gilbert and Sullivan, you name it, and operatic productions as well. So I think jazz is a home for musical nomads, and just like New York City is a home for people that may not feel at home anywhere else. So I definitely feel at home in jazz because it's where I get to bring all of those tools to the fore.
Right. It's the best incubator for that kind of creativity. And also, it really does. I'm not surprised to hear that you come from a classical background and a show tune background, because a lot of some of the greatest jazz singers were either classically trained or studied or built their chops, as we say, up in that world. So it only serves to make you better.
Absolutely. Well, it's definitely a gift to have classical training, because then to negotiate the landscape as a musical improviser, I think it would be very difficult to also be technically having trouble making the sounds you're hearing in your head. It's hard enough, it's challenging enough to improvise and be in the moment, and then at least to be able to call on an instrument that is going to do what you expect it to do. That's the gift of training.
Absolutely, and the voice is an instrument as much as a violin or a cello or a trumpet. I mean, it truly is an instrument, and it's even a bit more difficult because when you hit the C on the piano, you get the same sound. When you open your mouth to sing the C, it might not be the same sound. You got to work on it.
There's also a perception issue that took a long time in terms of what you hear. Just like I think for somebody who isn't a singer, there's how you think you sound, and then you hear your voice played back to you. And I know a lot of people who would rather see pictures of themselves or videos of themselves than hear their own voice. And after years and years of listening back, being surprised, eventually getting to the point where what I think I sound like is actually what I sound like, and what's going on in my brain is matching what's going on in reality, which I can't say for beyond sound. I'm not sure that that's happening for me, but it is as a singer.
Yes. Well, we jazz people do live in an alternate reality sometimes, sometimes forced on us by the situation. But I think that's really great, and I'm so glad that you're pursuing this because these days with so much happening in music that's pre-programmed, canned, sliced, spliced, for somebody to walk in a studio, turn the mics on, and record is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, there's a phrase in winemaking called l'autre raisonné. Your people in wine countries might have heard that phrase, and it just means the reasonable fight. Means like, okay, not going to be super rigid and be super organic about this. We're just going to only intervene when it's necessary. And I felt with this record that I wanted to only fight the reasonable fight and leave imperfections that were more authentic than.
That's a great analogy with wine. And speaking of wine, I understand you have quite a wine background.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I transitioned from being somebody who was focused in theater or cabaret and then into jazz, and that took years of shedding. And the thing that kind of helped me through that, since I wasn't gigging all the time or anything like that, was work in fine dining restaurants in New York City. So I'm a certified sommelier. and I worked at Gotham Bar and Grill and a restaurant called The Grill on Park Avenue, which were pretty intense places. But I've always loved wine, and I've always studied it. So
well, you and me both. I don't nearly have the pedigree, but I grew up in an Italian home where we had a little thimble of wine on the table when we were 3 and 4 years old, and if Granddad wasn't down in the basement making it, then he was bringing something in from Italy. So
I think that's so interesting, and people with heritage in places where winemaking is part of the culture, everyday life. It's so different because I often think I wouldn't have become a sommelier if I grew up in Italy, just because I could take delicious wine for granted all the time. I wouldn't have had to have sought it out and to educate myself because it just would have been there when I woke up.
That is so great. We're going to talk music and we're going to talk more wine too. But let's introduce our audience to your voice. What would you like to play first?
Oh, we were just talking. There's a song that has wine in it that I feel like is a great way to sort of be introduced. I'm beginning to see the light.
Well, that's a great tune. All right,
that's it.
That
Sorry, they're all great tunes, but beginning to see the light's really fun. So we can start with that, and it's a standard. We can delve into the originals and intense arrangements later.
We love it. All right, so here's Kristen Lee Sargent. I'm beginning to see the light.
I never cared much for moonlit skies. I never winked back at fireflies. But now that the stars are in your eyes, I'm beginning to see the light. I never went in for afterglow or candlelight on the mistletoe. But now that you turn the lamp down low, I'm beginning to see. Used to ramble through the park, shadow boxing in the dark. Then you came and you caused a spark. That's 4-alarm fire now. I never made love by lantern shine. I never saw rainbows in my wine. But now that your lips are burning mine, I'm beginning to see the light. Never made love by lantern shine. I never saw rainbows in my wine. But now your lips are burning mine. I'm beginning to see the light. I never went in for afterglow or candlelight on the mistletoe. But now you turn the lamp down low. I'm beginning. Used to ramble through the park, shadow boxing in the dark. Then you came and you caused a spark. It's a 4-alarm fire now. I never made love by lantern shine. I never saw rainbows in my wine. But now that your lips are burning mine, I'm beginning to see the light. beginning to. I never saw rainbows in my wine. Now that your lips are burning mine, I'm beginning to see. I'm beginning to see the light.
Wow. I love it. That
Oh,
was
I'm so
super.
glad.
Great phrasing, great vocals, great bass player.
Yeah, that's Cameron Brown.
Wow, he did a great job. That was really
Well, I
good.
mean, he's legendary for good reason. I always think of his work with Sheila Jordan, where he does a lot of bass voice duo work that's very adventurous. And I used his skills in that regard for all they were worth.
Well, the bass is so important in jazz music, as I'm sure Nathan Brown would agree. He happens to be one of the best bass players. We've had great bass players. Jay Lenhart was in.
Oh, yeah.
On our show a couple of weeks ago, and
great!
It was a lot of fun. When you pick a tune, what has to appeal to you to do that tune? Because there's a lot of songs that are great songs that might not be good for you. What draws you to the song?
You'd have to ask the song that. Because really, that's kind of one of those things where, I mean, there's a song on the record called Sconsolato, and I heard it on a Mark Murphy recording called Midnight Mood. And after like the 20th time of listening to the song in a row, I thought maybe I need to sing this. There are other songs that I love that much that aren't mine to sing. Mm-hmm. But usually, I think about what Barbara Cook said in an interview I saw her once. She said, you're responsible for every word you say on stage. So the lyrics have to tell a story I feel like I can convey.
Yes.
But also there has to be harmonic material that's interesting. So it can't be just the lyrics. It can't just be the musical content. Mm-hmm. And then, whether I'm going to record a song. I love the song Green Dolphin Street. It's just so much fun to sing. It's not something I'd ever record because I don't feel like lyrically there's that much meat on the bone, but I'll sing it at a gig and have a good old time.
Yeah, I've always said, in particular to vocalists, that it's really important to know what the lyrics mean and why the song was written, not just sing the lyrics. I mean, not just memorize the lyrics, but to understand the whole framework that's in it, because it really helps you sing that song. It
I think
makes
that's
you understand.
Yeah. Well, and you can hear it in instrumentalists playing as well as singers who know what the words mean. And I trained classically, and the fact of the matter is, when I was singing not in my native language, it was a little more difficult for me to really embody the meaning of a song. Mm-hmm. And that was my calling, so it makes much more sense. I'm making this kind of music now than that.
But that's really true. I know I'm very fortunate to have a wonderful daughter who's an opera singer, and she labors over each word in Italian or French or German to make sure she really understands the nuance. And so what you're doing in jazz is the same thing. It's really embodying the song, grasping it, understanding it, and what it means to, not just go from the first note to the last note and say, I finished,
Oh, you're right. Yeah. It's, I try not to think about jazz singing too much because it's actually crazy if you dissect it, you go, all right, not only you have to know the melody, you want to know the lyrics, you want to really understand and embody the meaning and the story of the song as much as possible. And then you're going to make harmonic choices based on, what the decisions you want to make and the chords that are being played, and phrasing choices about when you're going to say those things. I mean, if you drew a diagram of how you do jazz singing, nobody would ever do it. So it's really just finding that freedom. And I think for me, phrasing choices have everything to do with, there's a sense of play with rhythm, but also what am I saying in this song, and how can I make it more personal? And
that's why 10 great jazz singers can sing the same song and everyone's different.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
I love
that. You don't get to, unlike classical music where there's a very clear way in which things are usually there's a mandate, and then there's somebody is sitting in that crowd. She get to B flat. All right, the B flat. I'm out of here. Everybody's waiting for it and expecting it, and if it's executed beautifully, it's one of the most amazing things in the world. But in jazz, they don't know what I'm gonna do, so they can't decide if.
That's the fun of it. That's really the fun of it. We're talking with Kristen Lee Sargent, and Nathan Brown. And I want to remind everybody you're listening to City World Radio, Johnny Mandolin Show. We're sponsored by Sexton Records, jazz label. That's Cexton, Sexton with a C, Sexton.com. So, Kristen, let's hear some more music. What would you like to have our people hear now?
Gosh, well, I just mentioned Sconsolato, which I think would be a great place to go. So especially you jazz-savvy listeners may know this from Mark Murphy's recording. Couldn't find the music anywhere, transcribed it. It's a Jimmy Woody tune and lyric. And this one includes Jody Redhage Ferber playing cello, Ted Nash on flute. Both people will be on the date at Birdland tomorrow night at 7 o'clock.
And so tomorrow night, folks, everybody in New York, listen.
Yes, tomorrow night, which is Tuesday the 23rd. Tuesday the 26th.
26th.
So
March.
numbers in me. Of March at 7 o'clock. We're going to be at the Birdland Theater, which is a great space for a singer. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So we will be doing this track. And why don't we play it?
Let's hear it. Kristen Lee Sargent.
Brief candle burn, flicker and die, just as my love once brightened up my nights, then vanished out of sight and left me alone. In a word, sconsolato. Blow, oh night wind, blow. Invade her dreams, for it seems a love so once alive, regrettably has died, a heart without home. In a word, sconsolato. Through the night, dark and cold, how I'd warm her and hold her and kiss her again and again. Now my nights are despair, a symbolic nightmare of what it could have been, would have been, should have been, and cry, oh how I cry. I can't deny that love's why my life has lost all meaning. Ship without a sail, I'm left in a world, sconsolato. lost all meaning. Ship without a sail, I'm left in a world, in a word, sconsolato, sconsolato.
Wow, amazing. That was great.
Well, thank you.
Really, really good. I'm knocked out. That's, you have really good control over the material and the voice, and you also kind of bring, there's kind of an emotional phrasing there that it really stands out.
Well, I think if you sing a lyric like "My life has lost all meaning," you better be invested.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, really.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
We tried to bring that out. Also, having cello as part of the mix was so special, and it gives a heartrending quality to things that they might not have otherwise. So when I wrote her in, the idea was to capture some of that lyricism with the cello, so that I could explore other phrasing territory. So throughout the record, I feel that the cello is almost another voice, and she gets these beautiful legato lines, and that means that I have the freedom to be a little bit more conversational.
Oh, I think that's great. It really shows. I understand you've been in front of a camera recently too.
Oh, yeah, in a couple ways. One of the originals on the album, we made a music video for it. And you don't see that too often in jazz. And this isn't like, I've got one video where it's us in the studio and you see the cats making the music, and that's cool. This was a totally different animal. Went out to L.A., met some really exciting young filmmakers. Catherine Horak was the director.
Wow.
And collaborated on something that is pretty different. I don't want to give away any secrets, but it seems like it's just me in, kind of a something that looks like a living room singing this song, and it turns into something different.
I think that's great. Now, you have a website, or is there a way to people to see this?
Yes. So my website is my name, and that will help you find the YouTube channel where you'll find the video as well. My name is Kristen Lee Sargent, Kristenlee, like as in Peggy Lee, and Sargent like the Army, Sergeant. And even if you spell that wrong, Google will fix it for you.
Yeah, Google's good about that.
Yeah.
That's super. Yeah, check Kristen out on YouTube, and check out her new video and lots more. We're at the halfway point in the show, and I want to remind you, you're listening to Johnny Mandolin here on City World Radio Network, and we have the amazing Kristen Lee Sargent in, and the equally amazing Nathan Brown, who's visiting with us tonight and hanging out, a good friend to City World Radio. So how much time do you have to dedicate in your day to, how do you break down your music? There's practicing, there's learning something new, there's listening to new stuff so you can know what to sing in the future. How does your day break down musically?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I feel that I have to pay attention to where my time goes, but at the same time, it's always different. So this past week, leading up to the show, it was really about communing with the music and the charts and making some tweaks, deciding how I wanted things to be different, and things like that. So I pretty much put a hold on standards I might be learning or new songs I might be writing, and even wasn't doing a ton of listening, maybe one record. I was listening to some other people's music. And next week, usually after a big concert like this, I'll dedicate the next little period of time to just taking things in. After I've given what I have to give, then I'll start to absorb other singers or spend some time creating something new. So there's a rhythm to that. And then there's also the real work of being a musician, which is not the creative work. It's making sure that business is taken care of. The next task is really making sure the next thing I'm excited to do is to make sure that I get to perform all over the world.
and well, you should. And speaking of performing, tomorrow night at Birdland you're performing, and I was at Birdland actually last night. I was at Birdland. It really is a great venue.
Who did you see?
I saw Tully Rubenstein, who is a young Israeli woman who plays unbelievably good jazz recorder.
Ooh.
She was doing Charlie Parker on recorder.
Oh my gosh,
she was amazing. And I'm a regular there, and love to go there. Last week we had Jenna Esposito, who is a wonderful singer. You know Jenna?
We used to go to open mics together, and way back in the day.
Jenna was here last week, and she just did a show last week at Birdland as well. And she's a regular here too. So yeah, it's funny because in the jazz world, and I am in New York, but I also live in Los Angeles, and in the jazz world, it's not uncommon for everybody to know everybody. Everybody. I've heard of you. I've seen you on a gig, and it's a real kind of community.
Yeah, and I'm also, but at the same time, every time the end of the year polls come out, I'm like, who's that? I look forward to it actually. Every January, I realize that there's more facets to this business and more corners of people who are extremely adept at this art form that I don't know. So, like the free jazz circles and the vocal jazz circles don't overlap as often as you might like. So I feel like I'm always discovering new people who are working now as well as people that have passed.
And that's such a great discovery too. And again, last night I discovered Tully Rubenstein, who plays some unbelievable recorder. Let's fit in another couple of songs here. What would you like to play?
Well, I think we were just talking about the original. So
you wrote this.
These are the first two tunes I've recorded that I have written. And that's a major thing for me. I never thought I'd be somebody who wrote songs. I thought I would be an interpreter of them. So this song is called Balm Burn.
Interesting.
And
all right, let's hear it, and then we'll talk about it.
You're my balm and my burn. You're the lesson I won't learn. There's a way in which you singe and smoke me. The heat, the blinding billows provoke me. Heart in flashes, heart in ashes. I don't know to tell you stop or go, just please, by the way. You're my burn and my balm. You're the storm and the calm. You make giving in so easy. The flame and fire seize me. Hard as ice flows, soft as new snow. I don't know to tell you stop or go, just please. Either way, your kisses are so sweet. I radiate with pulsing strange heat. Swelter and sweat it off. My Fahrenheit spikes, then it drops. Spikes, then it drops. Yes, no, don't stop. You're my balm and my burn. You're the lesson I won't learn. There's a way in which you singe and smoke me. The heat, the blinding billows provoke me. Heart in flashes, heart in ashes. A man of rolling world and three below. You heat me fast and you cool me slow. I don't know to tell you stop or go, just please. Out of the way.
Kristen Lee Sargent. Beautiful.
Thank
very,
you.
Very nicely done. Are you more comfortable live in front of an audience, in the studio?
I love performing live. There's no question about it. Recording kind of came as a matter of, of this is what people do. I actually really do love it. It's such a different way of relating to the music. You can kind of steep in yourself, and you're not communicating anything to the audience in front of you. You're communicating solely through sound. It's an incredible, incredible thing. But I came to performing. I've been a performer forever,
right?
And a jazz singer for the last 10 years. But that kind of exchange is actually like necessary for my survival, and also I think how the music. When I think of the singers that have moved me in live performance, that's the thing that I'm basically after.
Yeah, truly a performer, and it shows. And it's interesting because I've asked a lot of musicians that, and a lot of people. I perform. I love to perform. I'd rather produce. I'd rather be in the studio. And it's not that I don't love performing. I love to get up there and play the mandolin and do some Italian music or some straight ahead bebop on mandolin. But on the flip side, I'm really happy in studio. I love producing. So everybody's got their own pull. You know what I mean? So that's just how it is. But I think that's great, and it's obvious that you do love performing, and that it. You lock in with your audience, they lock in with you, and that's a special feeling,
Yeah, there's something so special. I mean, I love technology and how now we can have video cameras that can see things remotely. Jazz Lincoln Center streams live, so you could be halfway across the world and see the music, but there's nothing like, it's like church, right? You just get a group of people all here experiencing and listening to the same thing at the same time. You're in the same room with the vibration of the sound actually hitting your skin. There's something really different about that. And I cherish the imperfect, wild quality about live performance.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So what's your balance in life? You have your music. You said you're very involved in or have been in wine. Mm-hmm. What else? What other factors? Any other things or hobbies or things left to do?
Everybody's like, wow, you're a sommelier and you're a jazz singer and you compose and this and that. And I'm like, there aren't any hobbies. This is it.
That's it, huh?
That's not to say, I read. There's other things, but I'm not going to, I don't have a affinity for racquetball or anything. I am lucky enough in life right now to be doing my passions. My hobbies are what I do. So, but it's a work in progress in terms of how that balance works. Working full time as a sommelier in a 3-star restaurant is pretty intense. It was not possible to do that any longer while I was preparing to release this record.
Right.
And while I'm writing material to be on the next one, because music is starting to demand more. I'm thrilled to say that. So, now I'm finding myself, I'll still be researching wine. I have a little web series that I think will become a podcast called Jazz and Juice. And that's on my YouTube channel as well, where I've done some little wine lessons of things I think people that are not wine experts should know or might want to know, and then interviews with great musicians over wine.
Wow.
Where they pair music with the wine that we're drinking, and it's very loose and fun. So I keep trying to find ways to bring together. I realize now that nothing I've done is a mistake. I used to think, I'm working in the service industry while I work on my artistry. They're not related. And now I see that actually it all goes into the same place. So I have a wine label that Ted Nash, Grammy winner Ted Nash, and I created called Two Notes. It's a red blend from California. So trying to be creative in the wine world is something I'm into. Yeah, starting Jazz and Juice and creating conversations that surround wine, and the personalities of the musicians that I love is another. And then, of course, the music itself. So that's it. That's enough. I don't know how hobbies would factor into
it. Yeah. And speaking of your work and your planning, what's next? You mentioned a future album.
Yes. It actually took longer than a minute to release this album after recording it, just to decide how to do it. So in the meantime, I've been working on a lot more originals. So I'm anticipating the next record to be have even more original tunes than the last one, and different, maybe some more instruments added into the mix. This record caused me to grow a lot by adding, cello and alto flute into the mix, and I'm hearing more. So I hope to get into the studio and do that soon, but we'll see.
But that's great to have a goal, like that, a future goal. And I would bet there's going to be many more albums in your futures.
Let's hope. Yeah, this is definitely not it. I don't know what that would. Yeah, the idea is, I think if you can get your life to a place where, the goal is to just do it again, whatever that is. There's no, I'm going to teach so that someday I can, save enough money so I can do what I really want. Or that would actually be a terrible strategy. Someday I'm doing some job so that someday you can do what you want. That's never really made sense to me. And, sometimes
it's not your passion.
No. So from come hell or high water, and some of that has come, to find a way to make my passions the way I live my life is kind of the mission. So still figuring it out.
So somebody once said, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. In the sense that I got to go to work. Oh my! You're
that
going,
soul crushing thing.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure some. If you're lucky enough never to have felt that way or feel, But I just realized, wait a second, I have the keys to my own little prison here. Or I just thought I'm using a model that's not really working here, so I'm using a different model now, and it's going well, but it's an adventure for sure.
That's great. And are you in New York? You live in New York?
I do. Live in Washington Heights.
Oh, you're near me. Very good.
I love it up there.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. New York is like nowhere else. And I mean, I've lived actually only two places, pretty much.
Where else?
The East Coast and the West Coast. I grew up I grew up in Little Italy and lived in the East Coast, and then I went to college in California, and so I had the both East and West Coast experience.
Weren't you saying your dad was his work at Disney was later?
His work was later. He had a Doc Anello had a wonderful big band, the Doc Anello and the Swing Machine. And if you go to YouTube, put in Doc Anello, and you'll see they actually have shots of him on stage performing. And he was a great musician. We lost him last year, but his music lives on, so that's all good.
Wow.
It's all good. Music lives. So
that's the truth.
Yeah, it truly is. All right, we have more time for more music. Let's play something wonderful.
Yeah. I feel like we've done some originals. We've done a standard. We've done a lesser known tune. Why don't we do the one holdover? My first record, I had quite a few arrangements of 80s pop hits, and I decided to add one to this record. This is a Spandau Ballet song called True.
Oh, love, great tune. Yeah. And your version?
Definitely not their version.
I know, I'm kidding.
but never in line for dreams. Head over heels and toe to toe. This is the sound of my soul. This is the sound. I bought a ticket to the world, and now I've come back again. Why do I find it hard to write the next line? No, I want the truth to be said. I know this much is true. I know this much is true. With a thrill in my head and a pill on my tongue, dissolve the nerves that have just begun. Listening to Carmen all night long. This is the sound of my soul. This is the sound. Always slipping from my hands. Sounds a time of its own. Take your seaside arms and write the next line. Oh, I want the truth to be known. I know this much is true. Ticket to the world, and now I've come back again. Why do I find it hard to write the next line? Oh, I want the truth to be said.
Amazing. That's really great. I love that rendition. That's super. You really put yourself into that, and I mean that. I love that tune originally when they did it way back when.
Yeah,
you brought some new life into that. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was really fun to get imaginative with it.
That's wonderful. It's wonderful. We were talking as the music was playing. We had mentioned that Nathan Brown's here, and he has been helping a lot of musicians, and I'm so glad that you could bring Kristen on, because what a pleasure. You know?
Thank you.
Oh, definitely.
I know you're in there fighting the battles too, so we appreciate that, Nathan.
No
That's
doubt.
great. That's great. Well, we're almost out of time here, but I want to thank Kristen Lee Sargent for being here. And once again, give our listeners one more time your Birdland show.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so Birdland is tomorrow night. That's the 26th of March at 7 p.m. I think there's some tickets still available. And it'll be great. I've got, you hear Jeb Patton on the record here. Helen Sung will be on the date tomorrow. Philip Norris on bass. And we've got Jay Sawyer on drums, Ted Nash on flute, alto flute and alto saxophone, and Jody Redhage Ferber on cello. So it's going to be a full stage at the Birdland Theater at 7 o'clock. So that'll be great. And if you can't make the show, I would just say definitely check out the video. And I hope to be coming to you soon, wherever you are. And please stay tuned on my website, which is justmyname.com. I send out a newsletter and just try to keep it entertaining. If I'm promoting a show you can't come to, hopefully I'll put something else that's entertaining in there for you.
Well, it's been amazing to have you on. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And have my most important question, and that's, will you come back?
Of course.
All right.
Tomorrow.
You're on tape. We've got it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the Johnny Mandolin Show. I want to thank all my listeners. And I want to remind you that there's a new show on Wednesdays at 7 o'clock, the Sexton Records Jazz Hour. Check it out, hosted by Larry Luger. And also, I want to thank Jade, our engineer, Miss Jade Zybrick, who is a wonderful engineer, musician, and great person to have in the studio. So, Kristen, once again, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Let's go out with a tune, one of your tunes.
Oh, yeah. What are we going out with?
What would you like to play?
Let's see. Gosh, can I look at the... I think our closer will be... let's do The Best Is Yet to Come.
Beautiful. And it is. Thanks a lot for listening to the Johnny Mandolin Show.
Out of the tree of life, I just picked me a plum. You came along and everything started to hum. Still, it's a real good bet. The best is yet to come. The best is yet to come, babe. Won't it be fine? You think you've seen the sun, but you ain't seen it shine. Wait till the warm-up's underway. Wait till our lips have met. Wait till you see that sunshine day. You ain't seen nothing yet. The best is yet to come, and babe, won't it be fine? The best is yet to come. The wine, we're gonna drain the cup dry. Wait till your charms are ripe for these arms to surround. You think you've flown before, but you ain't left the ground. Wait till you're locked in my embrace. Wait till I draw you near. Wait till you see that sunshine place. Ain't nothing like it here. The best is yet to come, and babe, won't it be fine?
for dinner?
Sure. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?